Yo, YouTube, what's up with your boy, Sports and Fitness Rant? I'm back, guys. Click that like button. Subscribe to my channel. What's up, y'all? Welcome back, guys. Welcome back. Got another great video for you guys today, as usual, man. You guys know the deal on this channel, man. It's all about setting the record straight, stopping the lies, stopping the narratives, stopping them from rewriting history, guys. And in this video, I want to speak about this idea, the memory that I have watching my father, my uncle, and his friends play basketball in the streets, in the gym, whatever the case may be. What I remember about this is the intensity that these guys played with. And this is what I remember about the 80s and 90s era of NBA and the guys that I grew up watching. The effort that they gave, I've told about it many times, guys, the effort that they gave, the intensity that they played with, that love of the game, man, it mattered to them. And we're going to talk about these things in this video, guys, because it's very, very important. Because we were very fortunate, guys. I'm fortunate, and we were fortunate to witness this stuff, to be there for that. And I want to thank you guys, everyone across the world, everyone across the states has been supporting my channel. Once again, guys, I am truly, truly humbled by all the support, man. It really means a lot, guys. Thank you very much, everybody in the membership, you guys commenting, liking my videos, subscribing, sharing it. You guys can say sharing your stories with me. It means a lot, man. Thank you to everyone out there, man. Once again, I'm truly humble, guys. I know my channel's not fancy or flashy, man. I don't really have much to offer you guys, as far as membership goes and things of that nature, man. I really appreciate it, guys. So thank you very much, man. Like I said, it's very humbling, man, for you guys to appreciate what I'm doing and support my channel. And you guys know what to do. Turn the volume all the way up. Hit that play button. Remember, these videos are for educational purposes. And let's roll. So I want to shout out to the GoatCast podcast. Shout out to them, my man Charles over there on the GoatCast podcast. He's been a supporter of my channel, man, and I'm hoping to link up with him soon and do a live show with them, hopefully within the next couple of weeks or so. But shout out to him, man. We were talking yesterday, man, and he made a comment on one of my videos, and we were basically talking about how, we were fortunate, man. We were really blessed to be witness of the 90s, right? The 90s era of NBA, which we all know is the golden era of the NBA, the most popular era in NBA's history, guys. Remember, on this channel, I've never told you the 90s is the greatest era. I've never said that. Whether we believe it, I've never said the 90s is the greatest era. What I've told you is what? The 90s was the most popular era in NBA's history. It was the golden era. That's what I've told you. I've never said it was greater than the 60s or greater than the 70s. These eras are different. What I've told you, though, is that the 90s was much more physical than today's era. The guys were tougher than today's era. Those are just the facts. That's just the facts, guys. The way it is, the standard's been lowered for these guys over the last 10, 15 years. They've lowered the standard. That's what they've done. So, once again, these guys, they'll say are greater athletes, they're more skilled, they're bigger, stronger, faster, but they lower the standard for them. So, it can't be. It can't be both ways. But as far as the 90s, and what we were talking about was how we were blessed and fortunate to be a witness to the 90s. A lot of these new age fans today, they don't seem to understand. They call us old heads, and they think that we're hating on the newer era players, right? Oh, you guys just, grumpy old guys that are hating on the new guys. No, what we want is for these guys to live up to the standard and be held to that standard. That helps the game. That pushes the game forward. The game has regressed because of a lot of these guys and their lack of consistency, their lack of effort, their lack of heart, their lack of a love of the game. These guys are more interested in having no trade clauses than they are about having a love of the game clause like a Michael Jordan, right? They're more interested in getting max money but not giving the max effort. And when we were talking about that, he made that comment, and I started thinking in my mind, you know what, man, he's really right. We really are fortunate. We did not realize in the 90s, guys, how fortunate we would be all these years later. How much the NBA game would deteriorate. Look at the All-Star game. We've talked about this. Look at the Olympic team. It's not the same as the guys from the 90s, guys. The All-Star game is nowhere near that. We all know about the Dream Team comparisons. They're not valid. So we really did not know how great we had it. Right? What's that saying they say? You never know how great something is until it's gone. Right? That's literally what happened to us. We did not know how great we had it in the 90s, even in the early 2000s. Because we did not realize the NBA would have fallen off the way that it has. That these guys, the players, the mindsets would change as much as they did. Right? So they don't respect the fans anymore. They don't really love the game. They love what they get from the game. Everything now is what you can get from the game. The money, the branding, right? How many celebrities you can meet, your social media. That's all. Everyone got a podcast now, these clowns. This all they care about is their corny outfits they're wearing to the games. That's it. These guys think that they're they're like stylish, right? They think that they're innovative with their outfits. They're not. You're a bunch of weirdos, and we don't want to get behind you fools. You're not grown men. Everyone's a victim now. Everyone is sensitive. You can't say anything to these guys. They're crying and moaning, i.e. Kevin Durant. Once again, like, you can't get behind these fools. They talk a lot of nonsense that doesn't add up. They talk reckless. They talk about things that they know nothing about, i.e. Anthony Edwards. So, and we know that they've cheated the game, these guys, i.e. LeBron James, right? Once again, they deteriorate the NBA. They've given us in-season tournaments. They've given us play-in tournaments, flopping guidelines, load managing rules, restrictions. It's crazy. But we were very fortunate, and we did not know how great we had it because we took it for granted, kind of, I guess. Those guys playing, giving the effort, showing up for 82 games, turning on the TV and knowing they were going to be there. I guess we took it for granted. We never thought that it would get to this point. But I started to think about when I was young, growing up, guys. And when I tell you, I'm very fortunate that I had my father and my mother. And I told you about my father and that he liked basketball. He was a fan of basketball, and he played basketball. No, my dad never played in the NBA. He didn't play in college. None of that stuff. My dad grew up on the streets, man. The streets of Harlem. 125th in Amsterdam, man. The Ulysses Grant Project buildings. This is where my father grew up. Playing basketball in the streets. In the streets, man. And I started to think about this stuff. Because a lot of people, when I talk on this channel, I don't think they realize what I'm saying. When I tell you I grew up watching basketball, it wasn't just on the TV, watching the guys from the 80s and the 90s. It was also watching my father play basketball in the streets, in the gym, with my uncles and his friends. And I remember this stuff, guys. I'm very fortunate with the memory. I remember a lot of, even sometimes my dad says to me, "Damn, you remember that?" And I'll say, "Yeah, I remember these things." And he's surprised because I'm only about 6, 7, 8, 9 years old when these things were going on. So my father, like I said, once again, very fortunate. My father would take me and my brothers. I told him the oldest of 4 boys. Now, my youngest brother wasn't around for this. He's a lot younger than I am. But me and my other brothers were only 3 years apart. I told you, I grew up in the city, man. So my father would take us everywhere with him. Right? Because he was a grown man, like I said, man. And I'm very fortunate, man, to have my father, man. But he would take us everywhere with him. And he would always take us when he went to go play basketball with my uncles and his friends from the streets, the guys he grew up with. And these guys would go to a gym and they would go at it, man. And that's what I remember. I don't remember the moves my dad was doing out there. I don't remember the footwork he had. I don't remember his dribbling skills. I don't remember the jump shot. I don't remember any of these things. You know what I remember about watching those games as a 6-year-old, a 7-year-old, an 8, 9-year-old? You know what I remember about those guys? The intensity of those games. The effort that these guys were giving. I remember these guys being covered in sweat. I remember these guys huffing and puffing. I remember these guys arguing with each other. I remember these guys banging into each other. And they were friends. I told you my uncle was out there with my dad, man. And they were going at it. Going at it, man. That's what I remember. The effort that they gave. The intensity that they played with. And you know why they were out there doing that? Because they loved the game of basketball. And they were being true competitors, guys. Right? They were respecting each other by being true competitors. I told you, man, the 92 Dream Team, the reason they were beating teams down by 30, 40, 50 points is because they respected the opponents. They didn't take them lightly. They didn't lollygag in there and beat them by 10 or 15, 20 points and be, yeah, well, we won the game. No, they were out there to prove a point and to make a point, and they made that point. They didn't disrespect their opposition by lollygagging against them or taking them for granted. Remember, you never take your opponent for granted. You never do. You never underestimate your opponent. But that's what I remember about my father and him out there playing basketball. That's what I remember as a kid, guys. Once again, I don't remember the footwork my dad had, or the shot, the dribbling things, moves that he did. I remember the intensity these guys played with, man. Full court basketball. This is old school, man. This is the late 80s, man. My dad was probably like 40 years old, in the 40s at the time, man. And these guys were out there giving the effort, man. Just old as I am now. And like I said, man, I was 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. My dad would always take us there. This is what I remember. Watching basketball, guys. Watching these guys play the game the right way. The right way. And that's what we grew up when we talk about the 80s and 90s era of NBA players and the way that they played the game and how we're very fortunate to be a part of that and have grown up during that time. Like I said, man, I guess we took it for granted because we did not know that the NBA would ever got to the point that it is now. Could any of us predicted that this where the NBA would have went all these years later? I don't think we could have. But unfortunately, these guys have not lived up to that standard, and they've lowered the standard for these guys. Instead of holding them to that standard, they've lowered the standard. And that's why my channel's here, to set the record straight, stop the lies and the narratives, and hold these guys to that standard. And like I said, what I remember the most about watching my dad play and his friends play was the effort they gave. What I remember watching these guys in the 80s, 90s do, it was give the effort out there. They gave the effort. Many of you guys know that. You could feel the intensity sitting on your couch. You guys know the deal on that. You could do it. When you watch a playoff game back in the 80s and the 90s, you felt the intensity because these guys were out there giving the max effort, diving for loose balls, right? They were doing these things, battling for rebounds, battling for position down low. This is what they did. Coaches going back and forth at each other. Teams running full court traps, half court presses. Right? This is the way the game was. Remember the All-Star game? The All-Star game, it was the bar. All across all sports, the NBA All-Star game was supposed to be the standard. Now it's not the standard anymore. The NBA All-Star game was a great event, and now it's falling off in this weak era. Once again, we were fortunate to grow up in the 80s and 90s and be able to watch those guys go out there and give that kind of effort. And like I said, show that love of the game. Respect the game that way. Respect the fans. Show up to work. Earn your money. Earn the respect. So once again, shout out to my man GOATcast Podcast. Like I said, man, that was a great comment that you left. And you're around the money with this stuff, man. We were very fortunate. And a lot of these guys today, these new age fans, they don't seem to get that. They think that we're just hating. We're old heads. No, it's the facts, guys. The honest facts, man. We're not tearing down this new era with lies and narratives. But this is what you guys are doing about the past eras. You must constantly bring up the past eras, tear them down, and why is that? So you could make these guys appear as if they're living up to the standard or they have surpassed the standard, right? They're above the bar now. But no, you've lowered the standard. You've lowered the bar for them. So they're not that great. How great can you be if you're not standing on greatness? If the people that came before you weren't that great, then you cannot be great. What are you being judged against? Mediocrity? They want everyone to believe that everyone before 2010 was not playing basketball. They were not great athletes. They had no skills. None of this stuff. They want you to believe that. NBA only started to get NBA basketball players over the last 15 seasons. That sounds ridiculous. How great could these guys be if no one else was great? And once again, I say the standard's not been the same. They're not being held to the same standard. So you're not as great. You can't be as great if those guys are held to high standards. And like I said, guys, we were very fortunate to grow up. If you grew up in the 80s and the 90s, you were very fortunate, guys. And I'm not saying that if you did not grow up watching the 80s or 90s era of NBA and grow up in the golden era, like really to appreciate it, I'm not saying that doesn't make you a true basketball fan or understand what you're talking about or understand the history of the game. What I'm saying is that you're really never going to understand what we're saying when people who actually grew up during that time speak in relation to this era versus the past era. You're not really going to get it. You're going to think we're hating. This is why I know when people say the word hate, that they did not grow up during that time. And when I listen to some of these comments and you read some of these comments, I know for a fact you did not grow up at that time. And you did not watch this stuff because you would have more of a respect for those players. And that's why I tell you, these ex-NBA players, they did not watch these guys growing up. They don't respect these guys. And they're not being honest. They're disingenuous, guys. They're not being truthful. They're out there for money and for views, for clicks, for the fame. They're not out there to educate you or to be honest or to hold the standard or set the record straight. They're not. And everyone thinks, oh, he's an ex-NBA player. He knows what he's talking about. You're just a fan. No, that's not how it works. That's not how it works. Once again, I grew up watching the golden era of NBA. Those guys lived to a standard. They were held to a standard by the media, by the fans. And they didn't cry and moan about it. You guys know the deal, man. Once again, the golden era of NBA from the 80s into the 90s, guys, it will always be the standard. It'll always be the standard. And that's what we want these guys to get back to. The golden era of NBA. Bring the physicality back in the game. Where's the effort from these guys? Where's the heart, the grit? Where's these guys wanting to play every single game and be true competitors, not team up with each other, but go against each other and beat each other? These guys stop crying for money all the time and stop wearing these weird outfits to the games instead of playing in the games. Respect the fans more. Stop being so sensitive. These are all the things that we're talking about, guys. That's it, man. We're very fortunate, guys. Very fortunate that we grew up during that time. Like I said, where grown men competed like grown men, and they carried themselves like grown men, like true professionals. These guys were true professionals that carried themselves with the class, the honor, and the integrity, guys. True professionals. And they were consistent. These guys today, they're not consistently true professionals. They're not consistently acting like grown men. They're just not. Those are the facts, guys. I guess we took it for granted, guys. They spoiled us, man. And that's why I tell you this channel, guys. It's Michael Jordan don't owe me nothing. He owes me nothing. I owe Michael Jordan. I owe Michael Jordan and all the other guys from that era that I grew up watching. I owe them because they were out there. Right? Like I said, they were out there and they spoiled us, I guess. We took it for granted. We didn't think the NBA would fall off like this and these guys would turn into these bunch of soft, entitled babies. Bunch of feminine clowns that run their mouths, that don't say nothing. Never thought it would get to this point. So I owe those guys to set the record straight and not allow these fools out here to rewrite their history and make it seem like these guys today are so much greater and they're greater athletes and they're greater human beings and all this stuff, man. It's an absolute joke, man. You guys know the deal, man. Like I said, man, we were very fortunate. Shout out to everybody in the 80s and the 90s, man. Shout out to all the guys in the previous eras, the plumbers and taxi cab drivers from the 50s and the 60s, man. The guys in the 70s. Shout out to all those guys out there that gave the effort, man, that showed up to work and didn't get paid millions and millions of dollars. They didn't have the luxuries that these guys have today. They weren't spoiled like these guys are today. We owe those guys, man. This is why we must continue to stand up and not allow these guys to rewrite the history on these guys, man. We can't let them do this. You guys know the deal, man. I'll catch you guys on the next one.